involved with Solaroof Technology, and today we have Richard Nelson on here as well to discuss. So, Richard.
Yeah, hello, and it's great to be here. And we're going to look at some of the applications of Solaroof that are compiled really in this video. We can go, maybe we can go through them and stop at each section because it's actually a few.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and play the video.
Okay.
I'll
So
do it without the sound for now.
yeah, I think without the sound, yeah, because it's kind of an overlay. But this is just showing really the aquaponics. So you got the fish, you got the hydroponic growing. It's all enclosed here in a controlled environment, a greenhouse, as we say. And that's not a really great image, but it's trying to show the soap bubbles insulation. So we do see this as being associated with families, communities. So yeah, and that was a really quite an early animation. Animations here are produced by Cedric Bourne in Belgium, and so that one is really this one is more for the farmers. We call it Pyrofarm, and you'll notice that in the structures there's a lot of sort of pyramidic shapes and so on, and that's really like a geodesic concept, making lightweight structures. So this is for a large area, like for farmers, really, to have a lot of crops. And you see here that there's their food is growing everywhere. It's in those benches, but it's also in between the benches. And we actually have a platform in this design. And in fact, you see these growing bins there are on rollers, so they move as well. And so you can sort of fly along. Oh, the platform's on the left there. You see that you could actually fly along. We call it a flying carpet. Anyway, the idea is you get maximum productivity. And then here, what we can see is the bubble tech. What that is our liquid insulation system. It's very dynamic, using the soap suds, so we call it bubble tech. Okay, now, yeah. So that is.
Sorry, I brought it back real quick because I remember yesterday
Yeah.
you were talking about how kind of also in this image, it doesn't even really show that there's another layer here that would be right. You have another layer that would be there.
Double layer. Yeah, the roof has a thickness and the wall thickness. And here you see the bubbles flowing in the right-hand side. So here you see the bubbles on the right, and over there on the left, there was no bubbles. Here we've filled one of these roof panels, which are long. Okay, now comes in the other bubbles. See it filling in that roof space. So that is a fully designed, and I built several of these. We can also show in another discussion the real life projects that have been built. But now these are a revision and sort of most up to date. Here's a backyard version. So we're also looking at small scale, because then families can grow a lot of food in the backyard. And again, it's using the same kind of technology. We create a vertical space, so we're going up and down to access, to have more space. So this kind of a lift, but whether or not it's the real kind of lift that we would use. But you can see the height there, and that of course gives you a smaller footprint, more productivity on a small footprint.
And, yeah, you gotta, and all these are all 3D renderings, and I think we should probably make a note about the lift as well. That was, just kind of like added as not necessarily artistic, but that wouldn't be the actual kind of lift setup or anything.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and they don't have to have a lift in there. And also, as far as the small scales go, you could do it without the lift, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. You can definitely have different approaches, and sometimes the plants can be moving up and down. So they move up into the sun, and then they come down to work with them to harvest. And we've got friends in Iceland that are working on that with quite simple techniques. That. So in other words, a lot of the backyard is not, it's by hand, right? You
Right.
you can do things easily and simply without the complication
Yeah.
of mechanical systems.
Right.
And that's a general principle, because like we were looking at the vertical farming concepts, that are out there, the industrial ones, and
Yeah.
what they've done, over engineered them, made them so complex that they have a high maintenance, they have a high capital cost, and they're really not producing incrementally more
Right.
by the area, by the footprint. Yes, sometimes, but problem is you pay for that footprint.
Right. Yeah.
Well, so
Yeah.
it doesn't, yeah.
Yeah. We saw that yesterday. They were getting to like $5-6 a head for lettuce, which is nobody's going to
Yeah.
pay for it. So it's yeah. All right.
Simplify, keep it simple. In the backyard, what could be your costs? Really, it's your first time cost, and then after that, now we're also looking at larger buildings built with the same principle of design, and so there is a model of one of these. This one is about 20 foot, or I think no, 24 feet on the side. So it's a good size. Inside, it's 20 by 20 feet. We've completely designed this, as a 3D, production ready kind of design. And although this is, of course, just an animation illustration, but the feasibility it's current, right? It's not something for the future. We could build this now. So what you get here is you get 3 levels. So the lower level and the middle level, more for living space, although of course you can grow all around, especially around the perimeter. And then up above, it would really be a garden space up above. So it's a tent-like structure. So these materials technology are important as well. Is a transparent, well, you can see kind of translucent, you could say, fabrics that have a high light transmission, but are also very strong,
Yeah.
durable.
Yeah. And then
You take the next step, yeah, larger concept of the same kind of design, and you get these domes. And so the domes can grow food for the community, and you have a self-contained, basically, community for food. And the interesting thing is not only the food, right? It's also energy and water that we're producing, and even sanitation. In other words, it's off-grid. It's an off-grid solution.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm always impressed by with Cedric's ability on these 3D renderings. Pretty amazing.
Oh,
Um,
he's
I think
amazing.
I think since we've gone through the kind of gist of it, maybe we can talk about now kind of like the affordability aspect of these, because all the video is concepts showing kind of like the ideas, but in practicality we have a very affordable versions of the technology and ready to go, like the fire tent, for example. Um, so maybe
Oh
we
yeah,
could talk about kind of like the affordability aspect now of
yeah,
the like the backyard system.
yeah. Right, yeah. Let's see. Do we have? Or here, the Pirate Farm, for example. I mean, that's a real example of affordability. So, the main thing about cost is simplicity. And as you see here, it's not a complex structure. It's very modular. It's using square tubing. In usually aluminum, most greenhouses around the world, I would say, 99% of them probably today are built with aluminum because these are kind of a wet and, moist environment, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so corrosion is an issue, but not with aluminum. Aluminum is forever material. And it's also means that we can recycle these projects. I mean, the investment you have in the aluminum is practically salvageable. So it's like, where's your cost here? If you really look at your end cost and the lifetime cost, the cost of building this aluminum frame is negligible, and you can see it's lightweight. We're using the minimum of materials, and we got a very efficient structural design. And because we're basically working in an open source, network, anyone in the network has the know-how to, let's say, improve the efficiency, and that spreads around the network because that's how we operate, right? And so the aluminum structure, I've looked at it and I've built these, and again, as we're saying, we can also have a session where we look at actual projects. And the cost is typically about $5 a square foot for the aluminum. And then when you look at the covering system, okay, so here it's a double layer of material. And they're both translucent. And well, Stephen, the Americover is down the road. We know the cost of these materials. And I've been advocating with them for decades. So we know these costs. Materials cost here about $1.50 a square yard. But then when you fabricate and so forth. So again, what happens is that, and I found this to be kind of a rule of thumb, that if the structure is costing about $5 a square foot, then the cover is about the same. And then when you look at the mechanicals for the system, which is for us, it's the bubble blowers and mechanisms, the thermal mass, liquid thermal mass, and these kind of components with plumbing and heat exchange and so forth, you add another $5 a square foot. So you're coming up to about $15 a square foot. When you throw in costs of construction, you're going to hit $20 a square foot. And of course, all of this is in terms of the end cost. If this is being marketed, then you may have also sale margins, and depending where you're delivering the project in the world, you've got project management and other kind of fees and taxes and whatever. So it wouldn't be surprising to see $30 a square foot as a rule, as a general principle. And whether we're building a larger project or a smaller project, actually these numbers don't change that much because they're based on the actual real cost of the material, right? That's where you get sort of the base price is the materials we're using, aluminum and high-tech fabric covering systems. Now, we're not using polyethylene generally because polyethylene is not very reliable. It's not very durable. And when you got all these systems operational, you don't want trouble with the cover system. You want a quality, so you upgrade the quality, and you can well afford that because you've got energy savings, you got a high profitability. Why would you have a high profitability and then go with low quality materials, right? Because you're going to have failures, and whenever you have an interruption of your production, you've already paid for the material. The cost, the higher cost is right built in there to having a low maintenance and a high ongoing operational success, right? So So we use these quality materials. They do not cost an arm and a leg. If we want to go to very high quality materials, yes, you can get into maybe capex cost up to $50 or $60 a square foot. And by the way, how does that compare, right, to other kinds of construction? Most greenhouses are costing us $20 a square foot. So we are right on the mark as being cost competitive with other products. If we do go to cheaper design like tunnels and using polyethylene, actually we can come below the typical costs. Where do we save? Mostly on mechanicals. We don't have a boiler. We don't have a heat distribution. We don't have curtains that open and close for, they call them thermal curtains or shade curtains, because the bubble tech is our insulation. It is our shading system. It keeps the space cool. Conventional greenhouses may have a lot of investment in ventilation if you're in a hot climate. And you know what? It won't take you through the middle of the heat of the hot season. It won't. You'll have to shut down because the outside air is too hot. So you can't ventilate to cool, right? If your outside is hot, what's the point of ventilating? So ventilation works only in the spring and in the fall, you know, in between the season, or maybe in the winter. That's when you ventilate in a hot climate. So, but the seasonality of conventional system is what is the problem. High energy cost for heating and cooling, and also the shutdown period. So up here in Canada, we shut down from Christmas time through to, let's say, March, and then they start up, to start the plants, doing the germination and getting your seedlings and transplants and things in, and then when it's practical, they start to plant out in the production area. So if you try to operate right through the midwinter, you're going to be you're losing money during that period. In our projects, no, we don't lose any money anytime. We're profitable in the hot climate, the cold climate, because our energy cost is so low.
Yeah, and yesterday we were talking about for 1,000. I don't remember if it was square foot project, but you only need one or two blowers, and they only need to run approximately 30 to 45 minutes a day. So the energy costs are just almost nothing for the bubbles.
Yeah, it is. It's practically negligible, and especially in the hot season, because the efficiency of our heat capture and our heat storage and the utilization is very, very high. We've been in the Nordic, countries, so Canada, then went to England, went to Norway. There are projects in Poland. We have good data out of those operations in the EU. And the comparative between a glass house and, this, maybe pause it right there and we'll talk about what's happening here. So in a glass house, like a Dutch glass house, compared to this kind of structure. And as I say, we have operational experience for decades now. So the data there's not speculation. Data is showing us data out of Poland was demonstrating a 60 times saving. So compared to a single glass cover of a Dutch greenhouse, we were showing not 60%, but 60 times reduction. In other words, almost comparatively, almost to zero.
Right.
So what we're seeing here is the soap suds that are blown. You blow the bubbles, right? And as they flow in to this roof and wall cavities, and we fill those cavity space. And according to the thickness, right, to the depth of that insulation, which is just soap suds. So it literally almost costs nothing, because mainly it's just water,
right.
and a little bit of, the soap surfactant agent in that water.
Right. And it's barely even water, right? Most of the, I mean, even the
Yeah,
foam
yeah,
is so light. It's just mostly air.
true.
Yeah.
It's mostly air. Yeah. So we're really blowing air around. And what we're doing is we're changing the air in those cavity space. We're changing it into bubbles. And because the bubbles are contained and sealed in that space, they don't evaporate, right? And they don't dissipate very rapidly. It takes an hour or sometimes hours for the bubbles to collapse, right? Which they're not permanent, of course, they will collapse. And when they collapse, they just they're just changing back to water. They just become liquid. Liquid residues that flow, that return, and of course we have a soap tank which is reusing the liquid, the soapy liquid. So every time we want to make the bubbles, we just pump from that tank, turn on the blower, and blow bubbles and fill. And so that's what's happening here in this animation. But again, maybe the next time we'll have one of these. We'll show the real life result so that people can see.
Yeah, definitely.
But
That's great.
we were really talking about costs, right? So
Yeah.
we're talking about two things: the capital cost and then the operating cost. And so the interesting thing is that when you create that savings in the operating cost, so today's greenhouses cost about 50% of the cost of our food is energy. And same thing, and especially in greenhouses, Now field production, it's nearly the same, but there it's fuel to do all the machinery operation, right? The plowing and the planting and the tilling and the spraying and all of those you're passing over the field with your tractor. So you're using energy, oil, and here, all we have is electrical energy. That's all we need is electrical for our motors as we blow bubbles and circulate liquid. And so, that's a huge sort of transformation. And there's no boiler, so there's no fuel. We don't have any requirement of using fuel. Therefore, also, we have a zero carbon footprint. We do not use fossil energy. We're really using solar energy in this greenhouse. And there are so-called solar greenhouses out there, but they do not actually deliver. And there's where the problems are. They don't deliver on a climate control, a true control through the hot summer or through a cold winter, where you continue to control your environment. Okay, some of these greenhouses, so-called solar, go through the winter, but they keep the environment barely above frost. So what happens is you can grow some cold weather crops like carrots, or especially actually the root crops are most resistant to these cold climate, cabbage, cold weather crops type of thing. And they don't die of frost, but you cannot grow tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers and salads and so forth. Okay, so this is the problem that the so-called solar greenhouses. So what we say is that we have the first and the only actually properly described as a solar structure. So anyway, so the costs of our energy are going from 50%, which is typical, to nearly to zero. And let's not say it's zero, let's say it's 5%. Let's say it's a 10 times reduction. Well, anyone in business knows that if you save money in costs, right, that money goes to your bottom line.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
where these existing greenhouse industry, they struggle to make a 10% margin. And I'm not talking 10% profit. I'm
Right.
saying a 10% sort of gross margin.
Right.
Now, we can expand that margin by, let's say, 4 times, just roughly, I would say that would be a fair number. So this is incredibly more profitable than any conventional. And as we said, I've described that our capital cost is the same or less than
Right.
the current greenhouse capital cost, but our operational costs are way down because of energy and also some, like the growing systems, right? The aquaponics and how that works, and that's another discussion. And so this is where the economics come in, and the profitability comes in. It's so profitable that probably all our food will soon enough be grown in this environment.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And yeah, you can't argue with those numbers. So, it's impressive. And I definitely think that we're coming up on the time where it's most needed. So, we only have about 5 minutes left on this recording. So if you want to say any closing pieces, we only have a 40-minute time window on Zoom. So
Right. Okay, well, let's end with this, that, there's a lot of concern right now about food availability, food price, right? Food inflation. And here is a solution for food inflation, because the inflation of food costs is totally related to the price of energy going up, and the price of energy will continue to go up. Don't expect that the solar energy, wind and solar are going to bring down the cost of energy. We're going to continue to see that energy is going to be very, very difficult to source, right? And people are probably less aware today about peak oil and the fact that our resources of fossil energy are also going to continue only to go up, and in fact, they might even skyrocket. And what would happen, to our food source in those cases? So we should be moving this forward. These inventions, these innovations, I would say, are critical, but they promise to put an end to the cost of our food, and end of the inflation of the cost of our food. And of course, what you're left with is the labor and the capital cost, and a fair return on those inputs. But returning fair labor cost is, I don't think that should be an issue.
Yeah,
for people, right?
Yeah,
and today we can make it so efficient that one skilled operator is producing food for, let's say, 10 families.
Right.
That's easily the 10 or even 20 to 1. So we're not in a crisis, really, if we implement modern invention and technology like this. Is there something else like this? Not to my knowledge. I've been all around the world with this tech, and I don't see anything that competes with it, not even coming close.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. And we got 2 minutes left on the recording time limit. So I think it's perfect time. Yeah. Thanks for breaking that down for us today. And yeah, we're definitely going to do more of these videos. And I think that video is a much more powerful way to get across to people. So yeah. We'll definitely set up another one. So thanks everybody for joining and watching. And yeah, Richard, if you'd like to say anything.
Thanks for hosting that, and let's do real life videos to show people that, in fact, this is not speculation here, that we've been doing this for quite some time, and we want people to jump in now and get involved in this business with us.
Awesome. So yeah, we'll do another video on Monday, and we can do the real life projects that are already out there, and we can discuss those on Monday if you want. I'm involved with Solaroof Technology, and today we have Richard Nelson on here as well to discuss So, Richard?
Yeah, hello, and it's great to be here. And we're going to look at some of the applications of Solaroof that are compiled really in this